Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're going way back to the early days of gaming. Think dial-up modems, floppy disks, and those bulky CRT monitors?
Oh, yeah, I remember those. The bigger the better, right?
Right. That's the world where Doom exploded onto the scene.
And changed everything. I mean, we're still feeling the impact of Doom today, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about a game that crashed university servers because so many people were trying to download it at once.
It's crazy. I mean, imagine that happening today.
Right. It's a testament to just how groundbreaking Doom was. And a big part of that is the story behind it. The personalities, the drive, the sheer talent of those two Johns, John Romero and John Carmack.
Yeah, you can't tell the story of Doom without talking about those two.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the heart and soul of ID Software.
ID Software. Such a legendary name. But they started out, in this really kind of strange place, working for a company called Softdisk, making games for disc magazines.
Talk about humble beginnings, right? But it's in that environment that these two incredibly talented guys, Romero and Carmack, they find each other.
It's almost like destiny, right? Romero, this wild game design visionary, and Carmack, this programming genius.
A perfect storm of talent and ambition. They were pushing deadlines at Softdisk, sure, but they were also like disassembling and reassembling their office PCs every night just to work on their own projects.
That's insane.
Yeah, talk about dedication. I mean, makes you wonder what they could have achieved if they had, like unlimited time and resources.
Right. And what's so fascinating to me is, like, Carmack, he was obsessed with pushing PC technology to its absolute limits. And that led to this breakthrough that seemed small at first, but it changed everything. Back then, everyone thought smooth horizontal scrolling on a PC was impossible.
Impossible.
Yeah.
But Carmack, he figured it out. He cracked the code, and without that, who knows? We might not have the kind of fast, fluid action that we take for granted in so many games today.
It's crazy how these small technical leaps can have such a huge impact, right?
Yeah, totally. And even with all their genius, Romero and Carmack, they had very different personalities. Carmack was like this laser-focused tech whiz, all about efficiency and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. And then you had Romero, who was, this flamboyant game designer. He was pushing creative limits, even if it meant things weren't always perfect,
Yeah, like a little rough around the edges sometimes.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, did that tension between them, that clash of personalities, did that actually contribute to their success?
That's a good question. Like, did it create this creative friction that sparked innovation?
Or was it the beginning of the end? The seeds of their eventual split?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But before we get to all that, we have to talk about their early successes. Like Commander Keen. Remember that little guy?
Oh, yeah. That was their first big hit. And it was totally different from Doom, right? It was this cute side-scrolling platformer.
Right. And then they took this huge leap forward with Wolfenstein 3D. Their first foray into 3D gaming, and it blew everyone's minds.
Yeah, Wolfenstein 3D was a game changer, but it was more than just a game. It was like their testing ground for this new 3D engine they were developing.
Oh, like they were using it to work out the kinks before they unleashed Doom on the world.
Exactly. And there's this crazy story about how they had to pay off a competitor because one of their contractors was like secretly bound by another agreement.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, the early days of game development were wild, man.
So let's get to the main event. Doom. It's amazing to think about all the different things that inspired this game. You've got Dungeons & Dragons, the movie Aliens, Evil Dead, and get this, The Color of Money.
Wait, what? The Color of Money, the Paul Newman movie?
Yeah. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true.
Wow. I never would have guessed that.
They even had this 70-page Doom Bible outlining the story, but they ended up scrapping most of it.
They decided to go for, a pure adrenaline-fueled action instead.
And that's what people loved about it, right?
Yeah.
It was just pure, unadulterated fun. And of course, there's that iconic image of the Doom guy on the cover. The one with the shotgun standing over a pile of demon corpses.
Yeah. Turns out Romero ended up posing for that almost by accident. It was a last-minute decision, but it became one of gaming's most recognizable images.
Speaking of iconic, the release of Doom was more than just a launch. It was like this cultural phenomenon.
I mean, remember what we were saying about those university servers crashing? People were so obsessed with downloading it. And it wasn't just the gameplay, it was how they distributed it. Doom popularized shareware.
Yeah, like you could play the first part for free and then pay for the full game if you liked it.
Exactly. And that's a model that's still hugely influential today.
Oh, and we can't forget about Deathmatch. Doom's multiplayer mode was revolutionary.
Oh, yeah, that was where the term frag came from. It's actually a slang term from the Vietnam War.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's fascinating how a game about fighting demons in hell could have such a lasting impact on language.
But amidst all this success, things were starting to get rocky between Romero and Carmack. It's almost like Doom's success was too much, too fast.
It seems like their visions for the future of ID software started to diverge, and those differences couldn't be ignored forever. It's funny, isn't it? A game about fighting demons, and in a way, it created its own demons.
Yeah, like the intensity of it all just kind of spilled over into the real world, right? But before we get to all that drama, can we just talk about the gameplay for a minute? What made it so revolutionary? It wasn't just the graphics, was it? It was like the feel of it, the speed, the adrenaline.
You're right, it was a whole new experience, those fast-paced 3D environments, all those crazy weapons, and you weren't just shooting targets. You were fighting demons straight out of your nightmares.
Yeah, I still remember hearing those demonic roars for the first time. The soundtrack blasting. Yeah, it wasn't just a game, it was an experience.
Yeah, the sound design was amazing. Mick Gordon, the guy who did the music for the modern Doom games, he talked about capturing that feeling of claustrophobia, the aggression, even the brutality. He knew that music wasn't just background noise, it was like fuel.
Fuel for the fight.
Exactly. And the levels themselves, man, those crazy maps with all the secrets and traps, not to mention the demons lurking around every corner. It was like level design 101.
A masterclass.
Yeah. There's this story about John Romero and how he designed levels. He was known for making them super complex and challenging.
Yeah.
Like he was always raising the bar, pushing the other designers to be more creative.
Yeah, even if it meant pushing them out of their comfort zones, right?
Right. But it was that constant pushing that drive to go beyond what anyone expected. That's what made Doom so special.
And the enemies, man.
Mhm.
The imps, the zombies, the cacodemons, those giant mouths. Where did they even come up with that stuff?
Actually, the enemy design was pretty innovative. They used clay models for the initial designs and then scanned them digitally. It was cutting edge, and it gave the demons a real presence in the game.
Speaking of presents,
Oh.
okay, I gotta ask about the chainsaw. Who doesn't love ripping and tearing through demons with a chainsaw?
Uh-huh. Good question. The story is that one of the developers found a cheap plastic chainsaw at a garage sale, and they scanned it into the game.
No way.
Yeah. It was supposed to be a little Easter egg, but it became one of the most iconic weapons in the game.
It's those little touches that make a game truly great.
Mhm.
And speaking of great Doom's deathmatch multiplayer, that was a game changer.
Absolutely. It was pure chaotic fun, and it was revolutionary. One of the first games with online multiplayer. It paved the way for all the online shooters we have today.
From a tiny office in Texas to global esports tournaments, it's amazing.
It really is. But even with all that success, the tension between Romero and Carmack, it was growing. It's like that classic story, the visionary artist clashing with the technical genius.
A tale as old as time.
Right. Romero wanted to expand ID software, branch out into different genres, maybe even acquire other studios. He had big ambitions. But Carmack was laser focused on what they did best, pushing the boundaries of technology, creating those groundbreaking shooters.
He was a purist.
Yeah, exactly. And then, as if things weren't complicated enough, Doom 2 comes out.
Yeah.
Another smash hit, millions of copies sold, ID software was on top of the world.
You'd think that would bring them closer together, right?
You'd think so, but it seems like it had the opposite effect. Doom 2 just amplified their differences. They were pulling in different directions and the pressure was building.
So after Doom 2, they started working on Quake, right? Which was
Yeah.
another huge leap forward technologically.
Oh, yeah. Quake was incredible. Fully 3D environments, advanced lighting, online multiplayer, that was way ahead of its time. But the development was intense. Carmack's push for innovation made it really demanding, and Romero started to feel like his creative vision wasn't aligned anymore. It was a clash of titans, and the stakes were high.
And to make things even more complicated, Carmack brought in some new blood. People who were more aligned with his vision.
Yeah, one of those guys was American McGee, a really talented level designer who quickly rose through the ranks.
McGee was the real deal.
Oh yeah, he had a knack for creating those dark, atmospheric levels that fit Quake perfectly. But his arrival also shifted the balance of power. Carmack was consolidating control, and Romero was being pushed aside.
So it was only a matter of time before something had to give.
And it did. During a meeting, Carmack basically gave Romero an ultimatum. It was his way or the highway. And Romero, being the proud, independent guy that he is, he chose the highway. He walked away from ID Software, took a few key developers with him, and started his own studio, Ion Storm. It was the end of an era, The end of a partnership that changed gaming forever.
It really makes you wonder what could have been if they'd stayed together.
It does. But even though they went their separate ways, they both left their mark on the industry. It's like their split was this supernova scattering brilliance in all directions. But that's a story for another time.
It really is a what if of gaming history, you know? What if Romero and Carmack had stuck it out? Would they have ruled the gaming world? Or would those big personalities have just, imploded eventually?
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about. But even apart, they both left their mark on gaming. It's like their split was this creative big bang, sending shockwaves through the industry.
So what happened to ID Software after Romero left? Did they lose their mojo or did they keep pushing the envelope?
Well, under Carmack, they went all in on the tech. They doubled down on what made them famous.
And released Quake 2, right?
Exactly. Quake 2 was a refinement of everything that made Quake so groundbreaking, and it just cemented their reputation as the masters of the first-person shooter.
And Romero. He didn't just disappear, did he?
No way. Romero was never one to back down from a challenge. He formed his own studio, Ion Storm, remember? And their first big project, Daikatana.
Daikatana.
Yep.
Yeah, the game that was supposed to be this genre-defining epic, right? A time-traveling adventure that was going to change everything.
That was the hype, yeah. But it didn't quite work out that way.
It kind of crashed and burned, didn't it?
Yeah, Daikatana became famous for all the wrong reasons. Delays, glitches, some questionable design choices. And that marketing campaign, oof.
Oh, man. The John Romero's about to make you his bitch ads.
Yeah, those. Bold move, but it backfired big time. It's like a case study in what not to do.
It really tarnished Romero's reputation, didn't it?
Mm.
But you got to give him credit. He didn't give up. He kept making games, kept experimenting.
True grit, right. He learned from his mistakes and kept on going. There's a lesson in there for all of us.
So while Romero was trying to recover from Daikatana, ID Software was still hitting home runs.
Oh yeah, they were on a roll. Quake 3 Arena. Return to Castle Wolfenstein.
They were still carrying that Doom DNA, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Pushing the tech, delivering those heart-pounding action experiences.
Totally. And then, in 2004, they released Doom 3. But it was a different beast.
Yeah.
Darker. More atmospheric.
A lot more emphasis on horror, right? Less about run-and-gun action.
Exactly. And it divided the fan base. Some loved it, some hated it. But it was a commercial success. It proved that Doom could evolve, stay relevant.
And then it kind of went quiet for a while, didn't it?
Yeah, ID Software shifted focus to other projects.
Huh?
Rage. Wolfenstein: The New Order. It was like Doom was hibernating, waiting for the right moment to make its comeback.
And boy, did it come back. Doom 2016 was a reboot that just blew everyone away.
It was a love letter to the original games, but also something completely new. Fast, brutal, over the top. It was everything Doom should be.
And then, 2020, Doom Eternal. Even more intense.
It's incredible to think that a franchise that started back in the early 90s is still going strong today. Still pushing the boundaries, still capturing the imaginations of gamers.
It's amazing. So what's the takeaway from all of this? What does the story of Doom teach us?
I think it's about the power of passion, the drive to create something new, to break the rules, to push the limits. And even when things fall apart, even when partnerships end, that creative spark can still ignite something incredible.
It's inspiring, really. Reminds me that sometimes you just got to grab a shotgun, face your fears, and rip and tear through whatever challenges life throws at you.
Love it.
That's our deep dive into the history of Doom. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. And until next time, keep on gaming.